Hey, and welcome back to the Business Real Talk, where this week we're going to talk about how you can use emotional anchors to create instant know, like, and trust with your audience. So let's get into it. Now, I'm going to start this week's episode off with a keep it real, honest confession. A lot of people come to me and ask what they should do to turn their business around or scale to the next level. And the first question I usually ask is, all right, tell me a little bit about your business. And before I know it, the person is in the middle of a 16-minute long rant where they're telling me everything that's going on in their business and all the strategy that they've tried, coaches they've worked with, the money they spent on ads, webinars, live launches, Facebook groups, and all the other marketing trends out there that they've attempted to implement. And when that person finally pauses to ask my thoughts, my honest answer is I don't even know where to begin. These past years have been an emotional roller coaster for so many of us in this industry. We all saw unprecedented demand, followed by what felt like so many coaches and course creators going out of business. And if we're being honest, many of us can relate to this feeling of, to be honest, I don't know where to begin. So, what we're going to cover today is my answer to that question. Now, whether or not your business is at that moment where you're ready to scale to the next level, or if it just feels like everything seems to be going great, but you're at a plateau and you're stuck, then one thing you can do to turn everything else around and take things to the next level is to focus on what we call demand angles. Now, before we jump into this, as a refresher, if you haven't listened to last week's episode, pause, stop this, go back and listen to it because you're gonna want to hear what I have to say. This is a 4-part series, and last week's episode was what really kicked things off. Now, as a refresher for those of you who did listen to last week, we squashed the myth that the success of your business is directly related to the amount of content you post. I sort of broke the internet by sharing how I went on social media and shared the raw, real mic drop moment that your content strategy is always going to be more important than content creation. Like a golfer trying to drive their ball further, hitting harder or swinging faster is not going to make a difference. Instead, it's the technique, the strategy that's the game changer. And we also discussed how you want a strategy behind the content that you post. And then ultimately, you create a system that kind of automates or systemizes the process for you. So you're not running around trying to remember if you posted or not and wondering why your content isn't bringing in premium clients for you. So I promised you last week that I was going to begin sharing what a content strategy actually looks like. Our secret move is a strategy that we call demand angles. So, what exactly is a demand angle? Well, a demand angle is a simple formula. It's your unique value proposition plus an entry point, a trigger point that meets your customer where they're at creating, which equals a demand angle. So, do you remember back in 2015 that what color is this dress picture went viral? In case you don't remember, or as a quick refresher, someone posted a striped dress and asked people, is it white and gold or blue and black? The question became so hotly contested that within just 1 week, it had 10 million tweets and mentions of people arguing their opinion. Now, as business owners, we're not really interested in who is right. What matters to us is that people see the world differently. And that picture really proved that point. Each of us has a different top priority, a different perspective of things that really matter to us. And that ultimately shapes our perspective. But this doesn't just apply to how we see a dress on the internet. Your audience has a different primary passion and perspective that shapes the solution that they're ultimately searching for. So when you're marketing your product or service, you don't want to just speak to the people who see white and gold or blue and black. You want to be able to market to both. This is exactly what demand angles do. But instead of just including two perspectives, we can create as many perspectives or demand angles as your audience may need. Now, most importantly, the demand angles create an entry point, a trigger that leads your audience to the core conversation you want to have with them. In other words, demand angles are going to give you different perspectives of the same scenario. For example, let's just say that your business focuses on teaching content creation. Now, people are going to have many different primary perspectives or trigger points or needs or worries or goals around content creation. Now, for example, maybe for some people, the number one perspective they have when it comes to what they want out of their content is they want it to just feel completely in alignment with their values, their vision, and their creativity. Let's call them person A. Now, for another person, their biggest struggle is time. They need a system that's going to streamline content creation. It's going to allow them to get as much done as possible in as little time as possible. Let's call that person person B. Now, for my business, I have a solution that both supports person A and person B. It's what I call my one-touch content system. Now, as a side note and a little bit of a teaser, I'm going to be covering this on our final episode, so you're going to want to make sure you stay tuned. Now, I know that I can solve both person A's problem and person B's problem with my one-touch content system, but I need to be able to meet them where they are at. I need to give them an entry point or a trigger that meets them exactly where they are and in their default perspective. So for person A, I would specifically leverage a demand angle that speaks to how our one-touch content system allows you to finally create content that gives you a strategy to authentically express yourself in alignment with your values. Since this is exactly what they've been looking for, it's going to instantly stand out to them and they're going to start raising their hand saying, tell me more. It's like I'm speaking their language. I read their diary and figured out exactly what they needed. Now, this demand angle or primary perspective is not going to create that instant resonance with person B as it did with person A. So for person B, I would share how our one-touch content system eliminates the content creation hamster wheel. And instead of needing to post on all the platforms all the time, you only need 3 to 5 pieces of content that you can post on just one platform, saving you hours and hours of useless work and trying to figure out what you want to talk about next week for your content. This is exactly what person B has been worrying about and looking for and seeking. So again, I create instant resonance and get them to raise their hand saying, yes, this is me. How can I learn more? Now, once person A and person B have raised their hands, the reality is I can share with them the same next step or direction, giving them that information. Now, for example, for us, that's our Bingeable Authority series. But the important part that you need to understand is that the demand angle creates that trigger point, something that emotionally resonates by meeting them where they are and then creates a bridge to where I want them to go. And it may be that person A is also interested in an authentic strategy that also saves them time. And obviously, person B may also be interested in a time-saving strategy that also allows them to be authentic. So for the most part, your customers may see some crossover and they may be interested in all of your demand angles. But the important thing about demand angles is recognizing that while people may want multiple things, they always have a primary one, a driving force, their main concern that they're prioritizing right now, a default perspective that they are viewing their world from. This default perspective is their entry point to a relationship with you. And in knowing all the different entry points that your audience may have, you can create these different roads or ramps that lead onto the highway that is your sales process. So let me share one last example. And let me tell you, I create demand angles for my kids all the time. Let's say that there's a birthday party and I want my kids to be able to go. Now, I could easily just say to them that we're going to so-and-so's party on Saturday. Whether or not you want to go doesn't matter because you're going to go. But let's be real, as parents, we know that we don't want frustrated kids because it's just going to be a pain in our butt the entire time. So instead, I want to create buy-in. I want them to be just as excited about going and be able to say to me, oh my gosh, can we go too? Because then obviously I'm creating a deeper connection and no more whining in the car ride over there. Now, if I am able to do that, I help them create their own momentum and excitement. I don't have to force them every step of the way. So in this example, I may go to my son, who's an adventure seeker, and say that there's a party on Saturday and they're going to have some of the coolest bounce houses ever. Since my son lives for adventure and loves bouncy houses, I know that he's instantly going to be in once he hears that. Now, for my oldest daughter, I'm going to go to her and say, hey, I hear that the goodie giveaway bags are going to be epic. She lives for goodie bags. So I know that when she hears this, she's going to totally be in. Now, for my youngest daughter, the sweet tooth, I know that if I'd highlight the cake, she's going to be in because she has that sweet tooth and a major cake fan. So once I tell her how the cake is going to be a legendary chocolate cake with strawberry filling, I know she's in. You see, telling my son about the cake would get me nowhere. Telling my daughter about the bouncy house would just get me an epic eye roll. Instead, I'm creating specifically tailored demand angles for each of those people. I can create resonance that translates to excitement, which translates into easy action. It requires very little effort on my part. The excitement from the demand angles creates forward momentum in the customer, which in this case was my kids, and doesn't require you to convince or cajole every single step of the way. The same thing goes for your customers. Everybody has a trigger point or a missing piece that draws them in. A demand angle is meant to draw somebody in. And when you can identify the different demand angles of your audience, now you're creating a content creation system that creates that easy yes from an all in premium client in less than 7 days, all from the very first piece of content. That's the power of demand angles. It's knowing all these different entry points, all these different triggers that really make people move that you can leverage that to create roads or ramps onto a highway that is your sales process. This is why people come to me all the time saying, everything you talk about is just such an easy yes because I want it all. Even if it's something I've said before from a different angle, from a different demand point. Clients like Michelle, who came to me a few years ago as a multi passionate, multi talented entrepreneur, but she felt a little boxed in. She felt like she could only talk about one thing, relationships, because that's what she'd been told from other coaches. But she had so much more to share, and it wasn't just about relationships. So, through the development of her methodology and ultimately creating demand angles, she was able to share all the pieces of what she did, how she helps people, and her business skyrocketed. But more importantly, she felt like she could speak to the variety of needs her premium clients had. So many multi passionate entrepreneurs come to me feeling boxed in by their message and marketing because they've been taught that they need to go all in on a niche and create a hyper focused message that just confines them and suffocates them. Not to mention, they feel like they're not even speaking to the full gravity of their prospective clients' unique needs. Now, demand angles allow them to create that deep resonance with their audience while also removing the restriction of niche messaging so they can speak to their audience's unique and varying needs. Now, demand angles are one of the most important relationship building tools you have. People value being seen and heard. And one of the most effective ways to show that you see someone is to customize your initial interaction with them based on who they are and what their needs are. Now, imagine for a quick second that you're hosting a dinner party at your house and you have friends, colleagues, and family over. Now, if you went up to every person throughout the party and just simply said, "Hey, how are things?" you're probably going to get the same old, good, good. How about you? Basic surface level conversation that nobody really wants to have. But instead, if you were able to go up to Jenny and say, "Hey, Jenny, how's your oldest daughter doing? I know she's about to graduate, right? Has she picked a college yet?" Or maybe I go up to another person and say, "Hey, Ahmad, have you watched the latest season of Stranger Things? I know you're a huge fan." These tailored questions not only show that person that you care about them and remember things that they're passionate about, but you're going to get a much more excited and enthusiastic response if you're able to go deep right away with them. You're creating instant know, like, and trust without needing to ask a bunch of surface level things or spend months and months on surface level conversations. Now, while I know that you're not able to go that specific in your marketing message with each question, you can still create the "I see you" effect with your clients by stating a specific problem or solution they have been ruminating on. So instead of being general, your specific language creates a bridge for trust and connection, which means you don't need 8 to 20 touch points anymore. You have people who get it, who see this one piece of content and say, "She understands me, she has a solution, and she's who I need." Honestly, anytime someone is struggling, the first place I look is at their demand angles. So this episode is honestly going to be a game changer for so many people listening right now. Now, while demand angles are the perfect entry point and start to a great conversation, they won't be able to create that Netflix effect of getting easy yeses in 7 days all by themselves. There's one crucial piece of the process that you'll need to implement if you want to turn strangers into premium clients. And that's exactly what we're going to cover next week. So make sure you tune in and hit that subscribe button, share this with your friend, and make sure you review. Or if you want to take action right away and you know that this is the next step for you, make sure you go check out our bingeable mini series at easyesleads.com. Or if you're ready to skip to the front of the line, you've heard enough, you know that you're ready to take that next step, I want to invite you to a blueprint call with me personally. What we're going to do on this call is I'm actually going to look at your entire client acquisition system, including your content. And I'm going to show you where the biggest optimization point is and where you're leaving money on the table so you can actually systemize how you bring in clients and get those easy yeses without spending hours and hours on social media or marketing your business. But until next time, here's to keeping it real.